And I said, well, do you believe that if you invested the 5 hours that you're spending a day on $20 an hour time, if you invested that on things that are really worth $500 an hour in the grand scheme, that you could achieve greater success in your business
Right.
and you could drive more revenue and drive more profit to the bottom line? And he said, yes, of course. I said, well, why are we waiting?
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of The Report. Today, we are live in the studio here in downtown San Diego, and I got a special guest. I got my business coach who just flew in from Boise, Idaho. I got my man, Rick English. Rick, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, man. Every time you come into town, it just starts pouring rain. I think this is the fourth time you've been down here, and every time it just starts pouring rain. What's up with that?
I don't know. I think it's the Seattle in me. Spent a lot of years in Seattle, grew up there, and I actually moved to California to get away from the rain back in 2011, and then moved to Boise, and now I guess it just follows me wherever I go.
Do you guys get a lot of rain in Boise?
Just depends year to year.
Yeah.
But typically in the spring, you get a fair amount. Last year was kind of Seattle-like, which was a bit of a bummer, but generally speaking, like the summers are beautiful, and this time of year it's kind of hit or miss. We're getting snow now, but
I've never been to Idaho at all. I was talking with the number 2 ranked pickleball player in the world, Tyson McGuffin.
Yeah.
Doesn't live in Boise, but he lives in Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
How far is Coeur d'Alene?
It's like about 6-7 hours.
Okay, so it's a good hike.
It's a good hike, yeah.
Yeah, he was out here in Newport Beach a few months back. We were going to try to do a pod, and then it fell through. He got busy. He had his family with him.
Yeah.
So shoot, I might have to go out to Idaho to get him on.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll see.
Coeur d'Alene's a nice place to visit.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, man, wanted to have you on the podcast. Obviously, I've been working with you for a year and a half now. For myself, I have a background as a W-2 employee. I was an air traffic controller for 11 years. And so I never knew entrepreneurship. I never knew business. And so when I first got into real estate investing, I was learning strategy, how to invest into apartments, how to invest into real estate. And, strategy is just one part of the equation, right? Now, okay, well, now you're growing a real business, right? Got the team, got the office over here. We're marketing, we're figuring out a lot of different things. And a lot of this stuff is new to me, right?
Yeah.
And so you can either learn it on your own, and you're gonna pay the price in different ways. You're gonna make a lot of mistakes. You're gonna lose some money probably. Or you hire a business coach like yourself. You plug into some masterminds with some other folks that have done this successfully, and you really shortcut your path from point A to point B. It's gonna cost you a little bit of money, but it's going to shortcut your path, and you're going to pay for the wisdom one way or the other, right? And so for me, I'm like, dude, time is our most valuable asset. We're not getting more of it. And so for me, it made a lot of sense. And I got connected to you through Michael. And dude, it's been great so far. So we hop on a call once a week.
Yep.
You flew out here initially. You implemented EOS with the team. That's our operating system. And we use that to run the business. But, I hop on a call with you every single week for an hour and just talk through things, the good, the bad, what's working, what's not working, challenges that I'm facing, what I'm going through. And dude, you've seen it all, right?
Yep.
You've seen it all.
Yeah.
So I guess I really wanted to bring you on just to kind of, some how-to stuff, some tips for the listeners, some things that people can walk away from and maybe use to, kind of improve their business, improve their mindset in terms of everything that's going on. We are in a new year, it's 2024. But to start, man, what kind of clients you typically work with? What kind of businesses are they typically in?
Yeah, so I work across sectors. When I originally launched my business, I just wanted to work with small businesses. I kind of start up to, let's call it 30 million in revenue, with the idea that I want to just help small businesses succeed. And so, I haven't niched too much. I've had some natural niches develop. One is real estate. So real estate investors, property managers, some of that piece in the trades, a number of folks in the trades. A lot of that just comes from, having success and helping people. And then they refer, their friends and colleagues and such that own businesses. And then, technology is another area that I've done a fair amount of work. So I don't discriminate against any small business. I look at it from the perspective of there's 5 buckets. There's people, there's processes, there's product and services, those together, depending upon the nature of the business. And then the profit, which is kind of your accounting, your finance, your data piece, technology, and then customer experience. And the reality is all businesses have those. So really I look at business, I like to sit down, have an initial discovery call, then maybe do a deeper dive where we spend a couple hours together. I get a look at the financials and figure out, can I be helpful to the business? Because I don't want to, when we were talking earlier, I don't want to try to help somebody that I can't be helpful to.
Mhm.
And so I'm super candid, and I want to be I want people that are committed, right?
Mm.
That, if we don't distinguish the business, then we got to distinguish the characteristics of somebody who's going to be a good client, right? And that is, they got to need help, right? To your
Yeah.
point earlier, they have to want help.
Mhm.
And then you said investing in help. You got to be willing to invest in the help, and then you got to be committed to taking action. Because, I had a successful other career before I launched this, and I launched this to help small businesses be successful. So if that action piece doesn't happen, then it's not fulfilling and it's not worth the investment. So those 4 criteria are met, and I feel like I can be helpful, then I'll work with any
Mhm.
business that's willing to make the investment.
I can resonate with that. We have our boutique hotel mastermind, and it's like you can share all the information and provide all the resources necessary to get that person into a boutique hotel. But unless they go and do the work and take action and actually show some sort of accountability, they're not going to do it.
Yep.
Right. And so in all reality, it's like, I want to work with folks that, are dedicated to buying boutique hotels.
Mhm.
I don't want to work with folks that are like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and so we only allow folks to come in that have the experience and they are serious about buying boutique hotels, because if they're not, it's going to bring down the overall quality of the group.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are some of the typical issues that you see clients come to you for?
Yeah. One of the big ones is the financial side of the business.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know where their money's going. They don't know how much profit they're generating. They typically know how much revenue is coming in.
Mhm.
A lot of times business owners will manage by bank account.
Mm.
The only problem with that is, like, you're not able to get the insights that you need. You're not able to make sure you're pricing your product or service properly. You're not able to figure out what margin you actually can realistically achieve in your business. You don't know what's really driving sales other than it's in your mind, right? So a lot of times I'll see somebody may have, say, QuickBooks set up, but everything funnels into sales, but they've got 4 different sources of revenue that are coming into the business. And so they're not actually tracking those 4 sources. It's all hitting a sales line item. So how do we know how much was sold? Well, I mean, if you really dig in, you could, if you're doing your invoicing, say in a QuickBooks or another platform, you may be able to get there,
Mhm.
but it's going to be a lot of work. So let's do the right work up front, having good financial numbers so we can use those to make good decisions in the business. I recently started reading the book Profit First. I don't know if you've heard of that book.
Yeah.
And so, the concept is, there's some really good concepts in there. And I think it works really well for certain businesses. All the bank accounts and all that can be messy for some people.
Mm.
But the general concept where you know your numbers and you manage to the numbers and you're paying yourself and you're committed to profit, that's a big focus that I have with business owners. The other one is, you hit on it actually when you were speaking about our working relationship, is time. I was on a call with a newer client of mine who's developed a really cool product. And, right now he's spending a bunch of his time, like half of his day, doing work that we would call $20 an hour work. So what I'll typically do with clients in the first, second, maybe the third call, depending upon how things have gone, is I'll ask what your time is worth. I did it with you,
Yeah.
right? What is the value of your time? Not what is the value of your time in the business from the standpoint of what you would pay yourself today
Mhm.
or what you are paying yourself. It's not that, because I'm interested in working with businesses who are growing or aspire to grow. And so as a growing business, the value of your time is not just what you could pay yourself, but the ability to create greater value in the business. So I asked him that question yesterday, and he said, $500 an hour. And I said, well, do you believe that if you invested the 5 hours that you're spending a day on $20 an hour time, if you invested that on things that are really worth $500 an hour in the grand scheme, that you could achieve greater success in your business,
Right.
and you could drive more revenue and drive more profit to the bottom line? And he said, yes, of course. I said, well, why are we waiting to hire the person to replace you and do the $20 an hour work? And he's like, I know I needed to do it, but when you put it that way, it just looks and feels different. So he's like, I'm going to post for this job, because on our last call, I told him to get it done
Mm-hmm.
in a nice way, of course. But
Mm.
he's like, yeah, I'm going to get it out tomorrow, because it clicked in his head that, you're willing to bet on himself. He's bet on himself since the very beginning, but he's gotten himself into this mix of the day-to-day working in the business so much, and he's not working on the business, and he's losing out on would ultimately be tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit.
It's almost like the mom and pop mentality.
Yep.
We buy these boutique hotels from the mom and pops, and you see the same thing. They're working in their business. They're cleaning the units. They're doing everything, and then they eventually get to a point where there's a burnout, and then they got the underperforming asset, and they wonder
Right.
why. Well, it's like, well, you were doing literally everything, and you weren't focusing on your highest and best use.
Yep.
I didn't know all this stuff, and obviously until I got into the business and all that sort of stuff. But working air traffic control for 11 years, like the value of my time was what I was making there when I was plugged into the radar scope, right, talking to airplanes. Now I'm like, well, I can hop on a 15-minute phone call and raise $250,000. So now the value of my time is just 100x or 1,000x. And so I think if you don't know what your potential is in terms of value of your time, you're not going to be able to appropriately, delegate the things that you should be delegating,
Yeah.
so you can continually replace those hours with your
Yep.
highest and best use.
Exactly. Yeah. And, at the end of the day, the other piece to that is you got to hire the right people. So I end up spending a fair amount of time on that as well. Because if you go out and hire the wrong person to fill that spot,
Mhm.
now you're going to end up having to get pulled back in likely, or somebody else on your team gets pulled back in. So that piece of selection and doing the work and interviewing effectively, using tools. I was talking earlier about assessments and using an assessment tool or a couple, depending upon the situation, to make sure you hire that right person. You feel, you maximize the likelihood that the person who
Mhm.
fills that spot is going to move the needle the way you need them to move the needle, so that you can get out and stay out, right? And not get pulled back in. Because that happens a lot too,
Mhm.
and that ends up being a lot of the reason why small business owners will just say, you know what, I'm just going to do
Yeah, because they make one or two bad hires.
Make one or
and
two
they're
bad
like, oh, I
hires.
got drug in
Yeah.
anyways.
I'm not good at
Yeah.
hiring, so forget it. I'm just going to do it myself.
Yeah. If you love real estate investing, passive income, and tax benefits, but don't have the time, my company, Summers Capital, is buying boutique hotels right now. We source the deals, we renovate the properties, and we even handle all the day-to-day management, making it truly hands-off for our investors. If you want to learn more to see if we can help you, visit summerscapital.com/invest to book a call with our team. Again, that's summerscapital.com/invest. Now back to the show. My first hire actually was like a part-time assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know at the time, because that was my only experience, right? But then now I see what's good and what's not good.
Mhm.
But this individual, created a lot more work than actually took load off your plate.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, like, are you going to be an asset and provide value, or going to be more of a liability? I had Dan Martell on a couple months back on the podcast, and he says that he utilizes the 1-3-1 method with his team. And so the 1 would be like, okay, what's the issue?
Mm-hmm.
And then 3, he'd be like, if you come to me with an issue, come to me with 3 possible solutions that you've already thought of. And then the last one would be, what's the one solution that you would recommend that we move forward on? And he's like, often they come to me with the 1-3-1, and it's like, yeah, we just go with it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it shows them how to problem solve
Yep.
and come up with their own solutions.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a book out there that's written long ago. I don't know how long ago it was, but called The 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey.
Okay.
So the original book was written was The 1 Minute Manager, and it was this concept of meeting with your team members every week. And that, if it's super effective, I mean, the meeting might only be a minute long,
Mhm.
right? But it's this whole idea that you are connecting, everybody's clear on what they need to be doing. If there's issues, you deal with those. The monkey piece is the issue, right? So it's them coming with the issue.
Mhm.
Instead of coming with 3 solutions, they try to pass the issue off to you. So the author, I believe it was Ken Blanchard who wrote that book, but the concept is they're bringing a monkey and they're putting the monkey on your back,
Mm.
right? And so I like that approach, because that's the whole concept. There is, no, you're not bringing the monkey. You can bring the monkey, but you got to bring the solution, and you take the monkey with you and you go execute on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I love that. What are a couple of things that folks can, utilize in 2024? Obviously, there's, we're in an election year. We're in a high interest rate environment. So borrowing money right now, getting debt, and just accessing capital to grow your
Yeah.
business is a little bit more challenging than it was a couple
Hmm.
years ago. AI is really becoming a thing. So there's a lot of moving parts this year, especially with technology and the election year happening. So, what are a couple maybe tips or strategies that you see being useful in 2024 for folks out there that
Hmm.
can use to grow their
Yeah.
businesses?
Well, AI is, I mean, it's just proliferating.
Mm,
It's pretty interesting. I think it's exciting. I think some people are concerned about it and the impact on jobs and that sort of thing. But I think there's so many cool ways that it can be used to help you be more productive. A lot, like to your point, like money's hard to come by. So if you're trying to produce content to make sure you're consistently posting on social media, the ability to use AI to help you
mhm.
get maybe 95% there, and then you have to do some editing, it's super impactful. But even on the assistant level type stuff, the ability of AI to understand how you do things and leveraging it as a productivity tool, we're seeing more and more of that. I think too, just not even with technology, is just getting really clear on where you want to go in business. Obviously, one of the reasons I'm down here is we're going to talk about that.
Mhm.
But I think with business owners using simple tools, I use Google Sheets. It's not like high technology, although probably on the back end it's more sophisticated than it looks. But to be able to, simply download Google Sheets onto your phone and have your goals there and have your to-do list there, take it with you, take action on those things. I think the other thing is accountability. That there's some AI tools that will enable you to hold you accountable in those areas where you've committed to certain things and set up reminders so that you can really maximize your effectiveness. So often business owners, again, like we were talking about earlier, they get deep into it and
Mhm.
they lose sight of the things the steps that they need to be taking to grow their business. I think the other thing I would say is get some help. If you can afford it, then invest in a consultant or a coach. If you can't afford it, find another business owner like you
Mhm.
who also needs the accountability, and be accountability partners. It's a super old way of doing things, but in reality, I mean, what are masterminds? What
Same
are
thing.
coaching rooms? It's the
It's
same thing.
accountability group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an accountability group and a learning group,
Mhm.
and so you can learn from each other, but make that investment. And then if you don't have somebody like that, I mean, nowadays there's really no excuse. Like
Mhm.
with social media, you can find somebody in New York if you're in San Diego, right? That you can, communicate with. There's all kinds of groups online where you can find people that are entrepreneurs. So get some help if you need it, in whatever way you need to or can afford to, because it just does make a difference, and it will enable you to accelerate
Yeah.
your business growth.
Yeah, and then, obviously, I think in entrepreneurship, growing a business, it's like there's going to be bottlenecks. There's going to be inflection points within the growth,
Hmm.
and so there's going to be parts where it makes sense to bring on new team members. Maybe you are paying for third party services, and you're like, hey, you're growing, and now the third party services is getting to a point where it's so expensive where you can use
Yeah.
that same money to bring it in
Hmm.
house. So there's inflection points within the business, but what are some ways that folks should know when it's like it's time to hire more?
Yeah. Well, I like to use one of the tools I like to use is a forecast or a budget,
Okay.
right? So if you have good information, good data, you know the profit level of your different products and services, or you just know the profit level of your business,
Mhm.
and you know what you're spending on labor, you know what you're spending in outsourced services, contractors, VAs, whatever it is that you're using. Build that out so you can see the detail and then project the revenue. If I have a client I was talking with yesterday, he wants to double his business next year. And he's actually he went the other way. He had a bunch of staff people and he was paying too much and he was paying them to do when they weren't productive. And so he's actually dialing back. And I've been pushing him to actually do more subcontracting. But and then ultimately we'll go back to having a team or having a mix of the two. But in his case, we can dial in those subcontractor costs. We know what it costs. We can dial in the labor costs. and we can project that revenue and identify those milestones where you realize when you can afford to add that person. And if you get there faster, then you can hire that person faster. If
Mhm.
you get to that number faster. The other thing with it is that I like to talk about a lot, because I think people get afraid. They say,
Mm.
"Oh, well, what if I hire them and I don't continue to have success?" Well, you know, it's not being harsh, but business is business.
Yeah.
So if you hire them and for some reason the economy turns or something shifts in your business and you ultimately aren't driving the sort of revenue that you thought you were going to drive or that you were driving, you're just that the trend does not continue, then you have to make an adjustment. It's okay.
Mhm.
People are flexible. People can bounce back. It's just one of the things that happens in small business. So if you're clear on at that point at which you can, you know,
Mhm.
you can make the investment, make it, bet on yourself, bet on your business, bet on your people, and then if you got to make a change, make a change. But more than likely, if you've done it right, you're not going to
Mhm.
need to
Yeah,
make
we
an
just
adjustment.
we just made a hire yesterday. She actually started yesterday, newest team member. Shout out to Presley, but Presley will be our executive assistant for Summers Capital and myself. Up until this point, Alex Johnson was director of
Yeah.
investor relations and doing the executive assistant work.
Hmm.
And Alex did a great job at it, killed it. But quite frankly, her skill set is she's really good at
Yeah.
raising capital.
Yeah.
Um, you know, investor relations. The investors love her. She's also great at helping grow our mastermind. And so, she's spending a lot of time with a lot of these admin duties that I'm like, these are not the best use of her time. So, when I made the decision to bring on Presley, I thought of it. I'm like, okay, well, are we going to raise more capital or less capital if Alex is focused on that?
Exactly.
We're going to raise a
Exactly.
lot
A
more
lot
money.
more. Yeah.
Or are we going to be able to buy more deals or less deals if Alex is raising more money? We're going to buy more deals. Are we going to have more mastermind sales and members if Alex is focused on that or less? More. Okay, so does it make sense to bring on another hire that's going to cost, X amount for the entire year?
Hmm.
Yes, it does, because we're going to have the opportunity to make a lot more than that by making this pivot. And so, whenever I make a decision like that within the business, I always think, okay, am I more likely or less likely to make more overall net income? And if the answer is yes, then you should make the move. And to your point, you're not married to that annual salary for the entire
Mm-mm.
year.
Mm-mm.
Worst case scenario,
Yeah.
you can make a pivot and you go back to where you were initially. Same thing if, you're someone out there listening to the show right now and you're looking at quitting your job and going full time into entrepreneurship to really grow your
Yep.
business,
Yeah.
or get into real estate investing, it's like worst case scenario, you can probably go back to your
You
old day
can.
job and
Yeah.
they'll probably hire you back. And then you're
Yeah.
in the same exact position that you were today, worst
Yeah.
case scenario. So in all reality, the worst case scenario is really where you are today.
Yeah.
And it's not all that bad,
No, it's
you
so
know?
true. I was actually last week I took the week off, but one of my colleagues was another firm, a firm that I was working with. We had sold our firm to them, to a company, and
Yeah.
he was a minority owner. The guy that was a majority had sold his firm to the same company, so we got to know each other. And he's still there, and I had told him that a lot was going to change. It's just going to be a matter of time. So he messaged me on LinkedIn
Hmm.
last week and said, "Hey, it's all coming to fruition. Everything you said is going to happen. It's going to happen." Not that I'm usually all that right on predictions, but in any event, he needs to get out. And it's funny because I told him just that. I said, "You need to leave. I know you can kill it.
Hmm.
You know this business so well. You have so many great relationships. Go start your own deal. You'll kill it. And if for some reason something happens and you don't kill it, your value, you know what your value is.
Hmm.
You're going to go get a job." But he's not going to have to worry about that because he can sell. He's got the technical knowledge. He can bring a team member on. He knows how to do that. The only thing in his way is just that he's always been working for somebody else. Even he
Mm.
was a minority owner, so he's still working for the majority owner. But I said, go do it. Go start tomorrow,
Hmm.
next week, whatever. But do it. There's no reason not to do it for him.
Yeah.
And so yeah, totally right.
What's the number one skill set in your estimation that separates the, entrepreneur who jumps into business and fails, gives up, and never actually sees it through versus the one that actually ends up being successful and successfully grows a business? What is that one or two personality traits that you see that differentiates those two individuals?
Well, I think one is just a high level of determination. I mean, you left a very comfortable job and you're
Mm.
just determined to get it done. And, I know from talking to you, there's things have gotten in the way. There's been some challenges. You've had, really good big wins. You've had some losses.
Mhm.
You got to be determined to fight through those things. I think number 2 is as you go through the process of forming, building a business, you have to learn from the mistakes. So some people are super determined. In fact, I followed up with a guy who somebody had referred to me a couple of weeks ago. I think he's determined to have his own business, particularly because I'm not sure that he really wants to be an employee, but his determination is not supported by learning from his mistakes. He's got the point now where it's completely resetting. He was looking for help. He was going to do all these things he told me he was going to do. But now he's resetting, and he hasn't learned from his mistakes yet. So I think that second piece is being determined, and you're going to fight through whatever happens, but then also making sure that as you have success, you learn from those successes. What worked really well? What enabled that success? As you have, dips or failures, you learn from those failures, and the collection of those things added to that determination ultimately fuels you. So
Yeah, that's really good. I feel like, and quite frankly, there's so many mistakes that you're going to make along the way,
So
and,
many.
you're going to pivot so many times.
Yep.
I didn't realize that, when I first was kind of getting into real estate investing. It's, by human nature, we think we got to have everything lined up, all the ducks in a line before we get started. But in all reality, what you think is going to happen when you get started is
Yeah.
not what's going to happen.
No.
And so the key really is just to get started, and then you just start your journey, and you got to realize, hey, making mistakes and falling down is just part of the journey. And I think one of the biggest takeaways I had this year was, don't get too high with the highs and don't get too low in the lows, and try to keep some sort of middle ground. It's really important. Other big thing I learned is relationship capital is the best capital out there.
Totally.
Yeah. Who is huge, but also your reputation is more valuable than the money. Doing the right thing when things go south and shit hits the fan. How do you respond to those things, whether it's with your team, your investors, clients, etc.?
Yeah. Having those values that you live by, that you filter what you do through, integrity is always a big one for me.
Yeah.
Do the right thing every time is just one of those core
Yeah.
things.
But I think most importantly, like with you, man, just having you on my side, jumping on those calls weekly, like it's just giving me the confidence to go and push my comfort zone a little bit, do things that I'm not used to doing. And it's allowed me to really scale a lot quicker than I would have on my own. So it's been useful, and I appreciate you, being there for me in my corner week in, week out. It's been huge. How can listeners get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your coaching business?
Yeah, you can, text me at 208-565-6099 or call me. You can reach me via email if you're an email person at renglish@myupadvisors.com, or you can go to the website, which is at myupadvisors.com.
There it is.
Yeah.
He's Rick English, straight off the plane from Boise, Idaho. I'm Rich Summers. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.